Last night on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani here. Andrew Fillipponi there at 93.7 The Fan, and we welcome your calls at 412-575-2600. Got a lot to get into, a busy week, Pony, but we'll start with Pitt. A dagger of a loss for them tonight, 69-62 at Clemson. They led by double digits in the first half, and then they came out and fired blanks to start the second half, 0 for 11 from 3 to start the second half. I don't know what else they got to do except win every game. They got to win the rest of the regular season games and then do some damage in the ACC tournament, right? What else can they do?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Bob. Big missed opportunity. They were an underdog in this game, 6.5 points, but they won as a 6.5-point underdog at Virginia earlier this year, and that's what kind of got them onto the bubble. And then these two road games against teams that are either in the field like Clemson or on the cusp of it like Wake Forest, they lost both. They were far more competitive in this game. But this is the issue with Hinson, who is a great player. He'll probably be first-team All-ACC, but he can give you 40 points in the game. He can also give you under 10. And he's the type of player, really, where if he's not scoring points, he doesn't really do any of the other little things. He's just a guy that is a streaky shooter and a streaky player. And that's why Pitt is such an unpredictable team. With him, they can beat anybody. They can also lose to anybody when that is the MO of your best player, when there's so many peaks and valleys. And so that would be the take on tonight's game. That puts them in a position, though, like you said, where they've got to win their remaining ACC games or regular season games for sure, and then do some damage in the ACC tournament and find another team who's in the field, like maybe a Virginia again or a North Carolina, and beat one of those teams in Washington, D.C., in order to put themselves back in the conversation.
Yeah, that's what happens when you lose those kind of games. They've been pretty good on the road, and this was a close game. It's funny how these odds makers know exactly, right? 6.5 points, and it was a 7-point spread in that game.
I mean, Bob, they lost to Missouri, who has not won an SEC game at home. That's a back-breaking loss.
Oh, no question. But, I mean, in the
December.
ACC, I think they've been pretty good on the road with some big-time wins and big-time places.
No doubt. I'm just saying about, like, why they're in this spot. Even though they've got a good ACC record, they got swept by Syracuse, who at best is a bubble team. I'm not bringing that up to throw salt in wounds. I'm just speaking honestly about their situation. It's interesting. Their net ranking is better than it was last year.
Yeah.
And that's because they've got those road wins against Duke and Virginia. I think right now they might actually be a better team than they were at this time last season, Bob, when they slumped at the end of the year. But their body of work from the first 2 months of the season is not NCAA caliber. And I know this is a point that you argue all the time. They don't take into account how you play at the end of the year. It's about all 30 games. And that's Pitt's problem right now. The overall resume isn't good enough.
It is. All right, you follow the NBA, right? You do a lot of that, because I do.
Yep.
And we had a really good finish tonight in Cleveland, Ohio, where it was the Dallas Mavericks and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and Max Strus went to work.
Yeah, I don't know what happened before that, but the weird thing about that sequence, why that play is so unusual, is because with the NBA, with a timeout, you move the ball to half court. You get the ball inside the half court line on the side. And so you don't really see half court or full court shots to win games because teams have saved their timeouts to give themselves a chance to draw up an inbounds play in the half court. So man, I can't tell you, Bob, in the history of watching basketball, which is for me now almost 40 years, I don't think I've seen many NBA games end with a shot from beyond half court because of the way the rules are written up in that league.
Yeah. Although now that's just regular shots for guys like Damian Lillard and Steph Curry. They shoot that ball from half court all the time. Caitlin Clark, yeah, don't forget about her. All right, we're due for a break. I went over there. We're going to open up the phone lines at 412-575-2600. We have a lot to talk about with the NFL Combine. We also have the Penguins in action tonight and a really big road trip. All coming up. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. It's on KDKA Plus and 93.7 The Fan. Join us. Our GMCSier Tweet of the night comes from Chris Peak of Panther Lair. There you see the score, tough one for Pitt. They led by double digits, as I said, in the first half. Missed a lot of easy shots, went cold in the second. They're 18-10, 9-8 in the ACC, drifting further from the bubble in the process. Some hockey stuff going on tonight, and again, when you're chasing so many teams, Pony, you got to hope that a lot of them sort of lose, but the problem is they're head bashing one another. The Flyers tonight won big as they beat Tampa Bay, which is, I don't know what to think of them, up and down, 6-2, I think, was the final score. And Detroit keeps on winning. Got 8 goals tonight and beat Washington 8-3. So these are teams that the Penguins are trying. Philly as the third team in the Metro, and Detroit now ahead of Tampa in the wild card. You know, you got to win, but you also got to hope a lot of people lose, and it's hard when you have 4 or 5 teams to deal with.
It is. That's why with the Rust injury, too, Bob, it just seems like it's really not going to be in the cards for them. Really, the worst-case scenario for the Penguins is to trick themselves in the next few days that they're still alive, not do anything, and then miss out on the playoffs. And then you risk losing Jake Gensel for nothing, and you didn't get anything back to replenish, to reinvigorate your minor league system. No prospects, no young players, no draft picks. And then the only thing at that point that you're hoping for is that you're able to coax them into re-signing here in the offseason. So I think doing nothing sounds like a pretty bad strategy to me in philosophy. And I guess it's possible if the Penguins are close enough to a playoff spot that they'll do that based on some of the things Kyle Dubas said at his press conference last week.
Yeah, they're losing tonight 2-0, almost at the end of the first. Brock Besser just scored his 31st, so they've been outshot 14-7.
Jim Rutherford probably ate some delicious Chinese food in Vancouver. The guy loves. That's not a joke. You know that, Bob.
I know.
The man
but he
loves
also,
Chinese food. That's a ritual for him. He eats Chinese food before games.
And the thing is, you should never bother him on a game day. He can know you like a best friend, but he won't talk to you, period, until the game is over. So he has that game face on. He's done a very good job.
Very superstitious.
Elias Lindholm, they've made good trades. They brought in people. Rick Tocchet is a good guy that even his GM is a former Penguin, and Patrick Alvin. So Jim Rutherford,
they could trade for Gensel. I bet you they're making calls to the Penguins about. I'm serious.
They might,
about
but
Gensel.
Don't
be surprised.
To me, they have enough scoring. I think they need some help in their blue line a little bit, but we'll see. They got one of the best players, Hughes, who leads all scorers as defenseman with 70-some points, I think. So, anyway, we'll see how that goes. They're down 2-0 late in the first. Let's go to Keith in West Mifflin. Keith, welcome to the Sports Call. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Watching the Pitt game tonight. It's just frustrating watching them during the season, how good their outside game is, but inside with Federico and Graham, they just get pushed in, and there seems to be no effort to keep the bigger guys from getting them easy shots.
Yeah, I mean, Graham threw up a 0 tonight. And Federico he's good for some rebounds here and there. But, I mean, beyond that, they don't have much of an answer to anyone inside. And I think because of the outside shooting of Virginia tonight, P.J. Hall got hot because they threw it down low to him, and he was pretty good both left and right-handed. So, yeah, that's a weakness for sure for Pitt.
And I wasn't sure that it would be. I thought Federico was going to make progress and build off of what I thought was a very good first year at Pitt. I know you loved him, Bob. He was one of your favorites.
Yeah, but he's
taken a
regressed.
Massive, monster step backwards for them. Hall is, for me, R.J. Davis from North Carolina probably going to end up being the player of the year in the ACC. I think P.J. Hall is actually the most valuable. Clemson's not even sniffing the NCAA tournament without that guy. He is a tremendous player who's one of these rare guys who stayed at one school and just gotten better and better every year. It reminds me of Bob Aaron Gray in that way. He's not going to have Aaron Gray's NBA career, but he's just gradually over time improved himself every season, and he's such a good fundamental player. Pitt has no answer for a guy like that. They don't have the size and the girth inside. You need a little bit of girth in the post, like in the old Big East days when you play against a guy like Hall, and they don't have anything in the way of resistance when it comes to a player like that.
I'll tell you, an intriguing team for me as they continue to play is Calipari's team in Kentucky. They score a lot of points, and tonight I was changing, going through some channels and satellite feeds, and I saw one of my favorite players is Reed Shepherd. He's an outside shooter, and he was on fire tonight. I think he had 32 points, but they got an intriguing team. I don't know if you can win with a lot of offense the way they do because they have problems defensively, but, man, they can score.
Well, they got 2 kids from Pittsburgh.
Right.
They've got Mitchell from Elizabeth Ford, who was at West Virginia, who left after all that Bob Huggins tumult. I think this is like his 6th school, but he's been a tremendous player. He's taken advantage of the new rules. I don't say that to criticize him, but that passport's got a lot of stamps on it from the schools he's been at, Bob. He's a really good player. And then I think the kid from Fox Chapel, Theo might be his last name or something like that. Yeah. He's a nice player too. But Shepard, his old man, was the outstanding player in '98 when Kentucky beat Utah in that tournament when they won the national championship with Tubby Smith. And the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He knocks down a lot of shots. I think they're a dark horse. They've had bumps and bruises. They've had ups and downs. Calipari's had some early exits in the tournament the last few years. They're not really loving him down there in Lexington because they think Final Four or bust. I think they got a shot this year. I really do.
Because no one's talking about him.
It is wide open.
And that's what I like about it.
No one's talking about him. There's not a team that I look at and say, head and shoulders, Houston, Purdue, obviously, Connecticut, very good. Those are 3 of the top teams. I don't trust Purdue, though. And I think Kentucky's got a shot to get to a Final Four if they get the right draw.
Well, I trust Zach Edey, I think. He's a big enough guy where he should be a mismatch anytime he goes in there, no matter who it is. We'll see. It should be exciting, though, as that starts up. And we're lucky enough to get 2 rounds here in Pittsburgh, hosted by Duquesne University. All right, let's shift over to the NFL, and we got the Combine. Rich Walsh today talked to Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network, and he seemed very pessimistic the Steelers were ever going to be in a Justin Fields situation. It looks like Atlanta, and that's a team I thought could use a quarterback like that for sure, based on what they have down there. Desmond Ridder didn't do all that much. You know, they've gone through a number of quarterbacks. When Marcus Mariota was there, I thought, well, okay, maybe he'll get a second life. It didn't happen. So what's it look like to you from the Steelers? They're just going to sit idly and wait? I know I saw some of your stuff today that you were talking about Russell Wilson. Do you really think that's something that can happen here?
Well, I think Omar Khan is going to love Russell Wilson for this reason. GMs, especially guys that are numbers driven like Khan, cap guys who made their bones because they knew how to manipulate the cap. Bob, it's great production for $1 million, right? I mean, say what you will about Russell Wilson. Is that not extreme value?
Oh, based on his last year, what do you have, 26 and 8 last year? You'll take that anytime.
He had more touchdowns than Lamar Jackson, who won his 2nd MVP.
Oh, so, I didn't know that, but I
that's 26 to 24.
Okay.
Right? So, that's, I think, why the GM would be interested in the player. Anytime you think the contract is below the production, I think GMs want that kind of guy. They covet that kind of player. Also, Bob, if you do it right, like there's no, it's not a Charlotte's Web. There's no entanglements. It's 1 year. It's very cheap. If he stinks, you bench him in the middle of the season. You go back to Kenny. You give him a bunch of games to prove himself. If he's good, well, then you let him play and see where it takes you. It's cheap. It's not something that weighs you down, bogs you down, hurts future teams because of cap ramifications. And then lastly, I thought Arthur Moats made a good point on his podcast. He said, him and Tomlin are from the same neck of the woods. Tomlin brought Mike Vick in. They had a connection, a personal connection from way back in the day. So maybe there's some of that here too. I'm just saying, the more I think about it, it's just a flyer. It's not really a risky gamble to do it. Right. And I still think you can look at Kenny Pickett and evaluate Kenny Pickett while still having Russell Wilson on this team.
See, that's where I would disagree with you, because if Russell Wilson is on this team, I wouldn't expect a drop-off of any big proportions based on what I saw last year from him, which was a rebound year from what he had before under Sean Payton. I would expect that he would play the entire season unless he's injured, and if so,
well, then if he's good, then fine.
Okay, but that goes against everything they've wanted to do with Pickett. It seems to me that they're trying real hard to, figure out what he is, and that won't do it. And I agree with you as far as production for $1 million. If you can get him, because he's made all his money. He doesn't need to make any more money. What he'd like to do is win another championship, and with this roster, he may do that.
Bob, let me ask you this question then, because the flip side of that is Mason Rudolph. So you're saying they got to figure out what they have in Kenny Pickett. They re-signed Mason Rudolph, and then he's better than Pickett in training camp, and he outplays Pickett in the preseason when you and Charlie are calling the games. Well, then what do you do then? You just give Kenny the job blindly because you got – okay, well then okay. then to me, like, don't let that if you're willing to bring Mason Rudolph back and let him compete, then you should allow yourself, be open-minded enough to consider other options too.
What is a competition? Because based on the last time they mentioned that, there really wasn't one. It seems to me that they're pretty much committed to Pickett unless they bring in one of these established guys. We're due for a break. We'll try to.
Well, let Russell. Okay.
Go ahead. I wish we had more time for this. Anyway, we will come back and discuss it with what time we have left right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Pony, last word to you on Russell Wilson. We only have a few seconds.
Well, I know. I just got texted to me, though. Apparently, there's a video going viral right now of Justin Fields in his kitchen getting very excited about something that his manager just tweeted out.
Wow.
So could that be a trade?
A cooking up situation late at night. Pony, thanks. Appreciate it. That's going to do. We're out of time. And if you want to get your opinion heard, don't forget to tune in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call tonight at 10:35 on KDKA+. So give us a call at 412-575-2600. We do it every night after the 10 o'clock news. For CBS News Pittsburgh, I'm Bob Pompeani.